What evidence from Christian writers indicates that Jesus appeared to different people after his death? Philosopher Dr. William Lane Craig cites the historical information in Paul's letters to the church at Corinth as being responsible for persuading the majority of critical scholars today that the early disciples, groups, and individuals did in fact experience appearances of the risen Jesus. Listen.
The key factor which has led virtually all New Testament scholars to reassess positively the appearance traditions concerning Jesus after his death was a demonstration by the late German New Testament scholar Joachim Jeremias that in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul is not writing in his own words, but he is quoting from an early Christian tradition or saying that he received and in turn passed on to his converts. He uses there the technical rabbinical terminology for the receiving and the transmission of sacred tradition. And Paul says that to the Corinthians, I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, namely, and then he quotes this old pre-Pauline tradition, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 brethren at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. And last of all, Paul says, as to one untimely born, he appeared also to me. This early tradition has been dated to within 5 years after Jesus' crucifixion. And thus, you have in the early Christian tradition the naming of specific eyewitnesses and groups of people that were widely known in the early Christian church who at least claimed to have seen Jesus of Nazareth alive after his death. Now, we can write these off as hallucinations if we want to, but we cannot responsibly deny that they occurred. And that's why, for example, Paula Fredrickson in the ABC special says that as a historian, I must conclude that these men sincerely believed that they saw something, and this something changed their lives. So for that reason alone, as I say, it's virtually unanimous among New Testament scholars that these early disciples, groups and individuals, did in fact experience these post-mortem appearances of Jesus alive after his death.
Now let me ask you, how many people do you think Jesus appeared to after he rose from the dead? Was it just to a few individuals? Was it to just believers? The answer is no. And historian Dr. Gary Habermas takes a look at the evidence, and I think it may surprise you. Listen.
Of course, the key list there is in 1 Corinthians 15. In that list, you have individuals, leaders of the church. Paul starts with Peter, ends with himself. In the middle has James, the brother of Jesus. 3 key individuals who saw the risen Jesus. But you also have groups, and that's very important to ascertain some evidence for these appearances. You have the 12. You have a group he calls all the apostles. You have more than 500 brethren, most of whom remain alive. Now, when you go to the Gospels, and I think also with good grounds, we have, for example, the women. You have several women at the tomb, and probably Mary Magdalene alone as she returns. So you've got them citing Jesus as well as the empty tomb. And again, if you're going to put your best foot forward, you do not use women because they can't go to a law court. You're not going to impress people in first century Palestine. By far the best reason for starting with the women and secondarily with Mary is very simple. They saw the risen Jesus. Now the Gospels also tell us about a long walk with 2 men on the way to Emmaus. I mean, it takes a while to walk and talk for miles with this visitor who turns out to be Jesus. You have appearances to the groups of disciples. You have in John 20 all the disciples present except, of course, Judas and Thomas. You have a second appearance a week later with Thomas in the famous incident where Thomas asks for evidence. A chapter later, John tells us about the disciples fishing on the seashore. And again, Jesus comes and he sort of makes a shore lunch for them, and they're looking at him from the shore. And, Peter, impetuous as ever, dives in to try to beat the guys with the boat carrying all these fish. and they talk to Jesus there on the shore. So you've got a wide range of activities. You've got men and you've got women. You've got individuals and you've got groups. You've got indoors, outdoors, sitting, standing, fishing, making a shore lunch, walking with them, hanging on by the ankles. Wide variety.